I want to go back to when you were little.
Okay.
Like, I don't want to start where everyone starts when interviewing you. I want to know what you were like when you were little, because you are, and I mean this in the nicest way, polarizing in an amazing way. You push boundaries. You're not doing what everyone else is doing. And that's a rare trait. Were you always like that when you were little?
That's a really great question. I think I grew up feeling a little bit different than everyone else. My family is not from here. They're not from the United States. I grew up in Utah, where we are right now. So even though I am white passing, I felt I was about to say Spanish, it's Latinx. So I felt like a little bit of an outsider that way. I went to a private Catholic school in the middle of Mormon, Utah. I felt like an outsider that way. And I grew up with a lot of trauma, and I felt like an outsider in that way. And so I think that is kind of why I became like this polarizing character.
That makes sense. So it's almost like you felt you were different, so why not just act different?
I never intentionally wanted to be edgy or different. I think it was just innate. That's just who I am, like from day one.
Do you think when you were little, did you think you were meant for big things?
No.
Not at all.
I never thought about that. I mean, of course, when I was like, middle school, like, oh my God, I want to be Britney Spears, that type of shit. I never for a second thought I was destined to be something ever.
What about now?
Yeah.
Good. Own it.
Is that okay to say?
Yeah.
I feel it. Yeah.
We need people like you opening space for women.
Yep.
Like, it's so important. Like, you should own it.
Right.
So you said you dealt with trauma. We talked a little bit about this on your podcast. Mm-hmm. What were some of the traumas that you look back on that maybe actually helped shape you to who you are? Because I find that people that have experienced a lot of adversity have more depth.
Yeah.
They're easy to talk to. They're more open. They're less judgmental. What are some of those things that you went through, and how do you kind of use them today in your benefit?
I think I agree with you. My emotional development, I'm very, my emotional intelligence is extremely high because my biological father was not in my life. So I think my mom had a lot of guilt about that. So I went to therapy like from the beginning, like wearing diapers. My mom put me in therapy.
Wow.
Because she felt guilty, and she was like, I'm raising a daughter as a single mom. So I think that's why my emotional intelligence is, so high. And, some other things that I think shape me, I think the father thing, and we talked about this on my episode that you guys came on, there was substance abuse growing up. I think it was traumatic for my mom and all her brothers and sisters to move to a completely different country when they're teenagers. And so I think their leftover trauma has been passed on to me and all of my cousins also. I'm just like going down the list of all the up things. But back to your question is, how was I able to overcome it? My mom really set me up with the tools. I will give her that. I think therapy, and I have never felt ashamed of trauma in any that
That's a big one, because I think a lot of people feel shame.
Especially here in Utah.
Yes.
Shame is the big thing.
Yes. That is a big thing.
Mm-hmm. And I don't think I've ever felt that. I'm an open book. I've always been that way. I will talk about everything. And I think that helps when you have suffered trauma.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people aren't able to talk about everything, and I think it seems even more here.
Absolutely.
So when you grew up with an addict, what was the other family dynamic? Like, you said that you were taking care of your brother. What was your mom doing? Was the addict like terrorizing the whole family?
Yes and no. So my mom, it was obviously extremely difficult for my mom. My mom's a single mom. she had me at 20 years old, and it was very, very hard for her. And because my brother and I have such a huge age gap, of course I put the mom hat on, because my mom needed me to be strong for her. And I mean, that's just, you know, what happened. I felt like a motherly thing. It's kind of funny. With my brother, I kind of switch between these roles of being his mom and then being the sister, where I'm like, you're annoying the out of me. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like,
that makes total sense.
Right, I flip-flop. I mean, terrorizing is maybe an extreme way to put it. Maybe I'm downplaying it. It was...
Because it was the normal to you.
Right.
Yeah.
Great point. Yes, it was the normal to me.
What's your relationship with your mom like now?
My mom and I are best friends.
See, that's so cool later in life. It must be hard to have a baby at 20, but then later in life, that is amazing that you guys are 20 years apart.
It is. You know, it's amazing. It's also, though, just like how I do with my brother, my mom and I will flip-flop roles. Like, she'll come to me and be like, I'm dating a guy, like, what do I do? So then I'm the mom again with her, and we kind of like interchangeably do that for each other. But I love her more than anything, and I think not having a dad until I was 6 years old, that's when my stepdad came in, that creates an environment to have an extremely strong bond with your mom.
Yeah.
You know, it's just you two together.
And how many years apart is your brother?
For me?
Yeah. 11. Oh, you told me that. 11.
Yes.
Which is a big gap.
Huge.
But that makes sense because your mom was 20, and then
Right.
that makes total sense that she's 32 or whatever having a baby.
Yes.
Okay, so I know I listened to you on Juicy Scoop, and I heard that you said that you had moved to New York and you were working at an office, which I totally don't see you working at an office. And like 9 to 5 miserable, listening to podcasts.
Yes.
One, why did you decide to come to New York? And I would love to know just like how you even like were working in an office, because that blows my mind.
So I think that when I was in high school, and I hate saying this, but it's the truth, I dated this guy. He was in a grade older than me. He was like this super hot, rich, cool guy, and I was infatuated, obsessed. And, you know, he kind of was like, you need to go to college, I remember. And I was like, really? Why? But he was like, I that's literally how I was thinking, you know? I wasn't that ambitious. And he was like, you need to go to college, and like, these are the things you need to do. And so, you know, I take that back. I have been ambitious. My mom has been the breadwinner always. Every marriage she's had, she's gonna fucking kill me for saying that. It's not that many. She's always made the money. She's always brought home the money. So yes, I was raised thinking you are in this by yourself.
Okay.
Also, I was raised to not trust men. I was raised to not think they're dependable. You know, my dad was absent. My stepdad had a substance abuse issue. So, anyways, in high school, he kind of told me like college and this and that. And so then I really started taking it seriously. And when I went to college, I was a very talented writer. In all my English courses, I remember my AP teacher was like, Sophia, you really are talented. Like, you need to like go into this field. And I thought to myself, you won't make money doing that. Let's do economics. And so I forced myself to major in economics. And I fucking hate math. And
Do you wish that you, looking back?
Yes. And to anyone listening, follow what you're passionate about. Because I did the opposite. And I forced myself to major in that.
And which college are you at?
University of Utah.
Okay.
I jumped around a few places, but that's where I graduated from.
Okay.
And then I got a job at a top 3 finance firm, and that was it. And I wanted to die every single day. It was so boring, but I thought to myself, that is how you will make money, and that's how you can be successful.
Okay, so at what point when you're miserable every single day do you decide I'm going to start a podcast with my friend? Was it planned out? I don't know this story. How did you even get in to your first podcast?
You don't. I mean, for me, there wasn't a day where I said, I can't take this anymore. I'm leaving. I wish there was that day. I mean, kind of, because obviously like the trajectory of my life, I'm so grateful for everything. But I worked in that job for 4 years and I was really, really miserable.
Wow. 4 years is a long time to do something you hate.
I was clinically depressed. I, behaved and acted out in ways that I wouldn't do now. But there wasn't a moment where I was like, enough is enough. I really had convinced myself this is just the way it is.
I think that's a lot of people.
Yes, this is what you have to do.
Yeah, I think that's the majority of people.
Right. Mm-hmm. And it's crazy. Why did I move to New York? That was your question. I had always wanted to get out of Utah. I think it's important because it is such a specific culture here and bubble. My entire family doesn't fit the molds. They're from Argentina and from Spain. My stepdad's from New Zealand. Like no one in my family was this Utah cookie cutter mold. So I never felt I really fit in here. And my aunt, because I had a single mom, she was like a second mom, lives in New York.
So you just decided I'm going to go to New York.
I went through a really, really bad breakup with a boyfriend. I had always wanted to go to New York, but I went through a really bad breakup. And then that was the catalyst to me piecing the out and moving to New York.
So is it simultaneously happening that you start a podcast while you're at this job you hate? How does this even transpire, this idea? Were you sitting there listening to Juicy Scoop and you thought I could do that? Like what was going through your head when you decided that you were going to do this?
My answer is going to be twofold. I needed a roommate when I was in New York. And there was a random girl I had met in like an Uber pool. And I said, do you know anyone? She said, yes. She put me in touch with my ex-co-host. We met each other that very day. We signed a lease. We became best friends. We had insane chemistry. And we were approached to do a show because we were like at a bar in Austin. Actually, we were in Austin and we were being hilarious. And I was talking about like, oh my God, double penetration, like just being wild.
Like on a stage or just at a dinner or like how?
At sitting at the bar.
Okay.
And next thing we knew, there were 30 people around us.
Was this Austin just for fun or was there like an event?
We were there for South by Southwest, but for fun.
Okay, but there's people there.
So you guys are in the bar talking about double penetration. All of a sudden you have 30 people around you. Uh-huh. Did you realize, this is like we're talented?
No, I didn't. But my friend at the time, she always was planning on how do I get famous? This is like what I want to do. And so she said, let's do a YouTube channel. And we filmed one YouTube video. And then next thing we know, we're being approached to do a podcast.
That is crazy. It is. That doesn't just happen. I mean, I haven't heard a lot of stories like that.
No.
You guys really, people, when I do interviews, people will be like, what was the epiphany when you like woke up and you felt...
I didn't.
For you, no, but you had something that was like...
Well, I think
I can't pinpoint something in my career. It's been slow for me.
What's so crazy about what happened to both of you?
Yeah, and yours was like
it blew up overnight.
It did blow up. You almost went viral.
What happened to both of you is so crazy because it's not like most people that get into this like they're planning, they're taking time, they're creating like it just happened, and you kind of both just got thrown into it. You're forced into a partnership. Right?
I think I did. I don't think she did. I think she was planning on it her entire life. I was thrown into it. I had no intention of doing something like that.
Did you know that with the first podcast episode that it was going to be something huge?
No, I had no idea. However, I will say, back to when I was like, it's twofold how this happened. When I was miserable at my job, I would listen to podcasts and I would visualize having one myself and escaping. And I don't know if you guys buy into The Secret.
Makes sense.
Or Ask, Believe, Receive. Like, you know what I'm saying? I think it I really think that is why.
So you were manifesting this
Yes.
before it even happened.
Thank you. That's
so
the
when
word I
it
was looking
happened,
for.
you maybe weren't shocked that it was happening, or were you shocked? Were you like, what's going on? This is my life. This is so different.
Or could you
than the
guys even
contract.
contextualize the scale of this? Like,
We had no idea.
you know what I mean? Because at one point, outside of Joe Rogan, it was probably the biggest show in terms of podcasts in the world.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
We had no idea, but more importantly, I had really no idea. I had no clue. I didn't know the entertainment industry. I'm from Utah. I didn't know what, I think I can say it. I didn't know what Barstool was. I had no clue. And I remember talking to my mom saying, I think I'm going to quit my job and do the podcast only because they're going to pay me more. And because I'd be happier, obviously.
What does your mom say?
It's funny. She was a little hesitant. She was hesitant at first because I had done, I think it was 3 episodes while I was still working my finance job, and they were raunchy as fuck, So my mom was like, do you really want to make this a career? And I just said, I'm so depressed working in finance. I want to do this. And she said, I'm going to support you.
What
but
happened?
I had no clue.
What happens to egos during this? Like you like with both of you, like how do you manage your ego when you go from working in finance in a job you hate to all of a sudden overnight being on the top podcast charts?
I hate referring to myself as an artist, but I do think that is what I am at my core. And I think a lot of artists struggle with self-doubt, being self-critical. And I think that I have that so much, almost to a fault, and I'm working on it. I never had ego. I never have had it. Ever. Even when I was #1 episode on the chart.
Well, I think like I empathize with everybody involved in that situation because you two, you're doing a show, all of a sudden it becomes #1, but like it just came out of nowhere. So it was hard to contextualize even like what it takes to be #1. You're just #1, right? So like you didn't have that. And then from the Barstool perspective, like they meet 2 talented women in a bar. That's like what they do is they spot talent, and all of a sudden it becomes the biggest. Like I don't think anyone anticipated what the fuck was going to happen.
No one did.
So everyone's in this situation, and I'm sure, like not to get to the business of it, agreements were made without nobody knew that the scale that this was going to be, right? Like Barstool saying, hey, we'll give it a try. And listen, I do that at Dear Media. We're like, we'll take a talent, we'll see what happens. Like maybe it works, maybe it doesn't.
Yes.
You guys are like, okay, maybe this works, maybe it doesn't. All of a sudden this thing is just the biggest podcast in the world, and everyone's in there like, what the
Right. I don't regret signing that contract. Do I think it would have been smarter to fight to keep your intellectual property? Absolutely. But I don't regret it. I
But
think
you know why that would have been
smart.
hard? Like knowing just like me being in the
Of
position
course.
is that at the time you wouldn't have thought about it because like you guys were all just starting, right? And so like
There was no leverage
There was
up
no
front.
there was no
There
leverage,
was no
right?
leverage. You know what though? I remember my mom. I remember a certain discussion when I said, Mom, I'm going to sign this. She said, why have you not shopped it around or talked to one other podcast network or one other place?
But let me ask you this as devil's advocate. If you had not joined that community,
do I think it would have been as big?
And I actually don't know. I'm actually wondering the question. I don't have the answer.
I think that it would have been as big. I don't think it would have happened overnight.
Yeah.
Well, that's the trade-off, right? It's like
That's it.
You go to a community like Barstool, which honestly, and my hats off to what they built. They built one of the greatest media companies of our time, right? They just have. That's not a dispute. But and you're right. You guys would have been successful, but it's this launch pad. So it's this trade-off, and I think
Of course.
probably in hindsight, it would have just been like understanding the overall structure of how this entire world of media works.
But don't you feel like you have gotten and gained so much knowledge through all this?
So much.
So in a way, it's like, are you like kind of grateful or no?
I go back and forth. I would say 75% of the time I feel so grateful, and then 25% of the time I think back to what happened, how I dedicated, over 2 years of my life to a show that I have no ownership of at all. you know, when I'm feeling down, that 25% creeps up where I'm like, what the that was so fucked up. But really, for the most part, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful.
As you guys are growing the show and living together, because I know how it is to have a show with someone and live together.
Right.
Was that challenging, or was it seamless and easy and fine?
It was seamless and easy and fine until I got a boyfriend.
That makes sense.
And then when I would leave, or when I would say I'm going to spend the weekend somewhere else, I started to feel like a issue. Like, because I mean, we were kind of essentially dating each other. You know what I'm saying? So when I started dating someone and it wasn't like, I'm going to be here every second of the day and we're not going to continue going on as we were, she didn't like that.
I've had a friend like that, and it's almost like a possessive energy.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
It happened with my friend Wesson when we got back together. And he's gonna be mad I said that, but like we got back together,
right.
and all of a sudden I wasn't the wing guy anymore. I was like, when I was not out with her.
What about if she had a boyfriend at the time that you had a boyfriend? Was there issue there still?
That never happened, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, so you don't know.
I don't know.
So everything was seamless until you had a boyfriend. Did you start to notice that there was weirdness with the podcast too, or just with the home life?
The podcast, no. Home life a little bit. When I would get home from being gone for 3 days or something, there a little bit. That's where I could feel the weirdness. In the actual podcast, not so much.
When you guys were strategizing the podcast and coming up with content, was it so easy, or was it hard because you had this niche subject that you're talking about? I mean, was it easy to, like, you can't just interview anyone because not everyone's open about their sex life. How did that work?
For me, it came extremely easy. I'll be honest. I think I'm just really creative. And you know what? Maybe that stems from trauma. It's kind of like living in your head and like escaping. I've always been very creative. And so for me, coming up with content was not difficult. I can't say the same thing for her because she was having someone write a lot of her content for her. But for me, it wasn't hard.
At what point were you like, something's not right? Or was there not that epiphany? Was it just slow? Do you remember, like, because, you know, we all have those moments, like,
yeah,
when we break up with an ex, like, I can name a moment where I was like, oh no, this isn't going to work for me anymore. Or a friendship that hasn't worked out. I can, like, name the little moment where I was like, yeah, like, you get that feeling in your stomach.
Yes. I don't think I ever had a aha moment where it was like, oh, this is really bad. But I had a bunch of little red flags that popped up that I just kind of ignored. I think that when MILF Hunter, I mean, are you guys familiar with that character?
I know who the MILF Hunter is, yes.
I don't.
Is he the actual MILF Hunter, like the real one from back in the day?
Yes.
Okay.
What's that?
He's a porn
Why
guy.
isn't he hunting me?
Well, listen.
What's MILF Hunter?
I'm trying to think of how I can explain this. Essentially, my ex-best friend, co-host, the person that was writing content for her and was heavily involved in the show and was her best friend from high school, when I saw them have a falling out literally in front of me, we were all sitting in our apartment, and he started crying, and he looked at me and he said, "She's gonna fuck you over." There was a light bulb moment there. But there were little things leading up to it. I mean, do you guys like want me to like go?
No, I think everyone's interested in, because here's what the
it's one of the number one questions that we got
here's
asked.
The thing
is how I didn't know.
Well, no, here's the thing is that you have your perspective and then she has her perspective, and obviously the people involved have their perspectives, and it's like I think everyone's trying to decipher like what the fuck happened, who was in the right, who was in the wrong. But here's the thing. I think from everyone's perspective, nobody feels they were in the wrong,
it's probably
right?
everyone feels like their intentions were the
like
right intentions.
That's the difficult thing is like, I don't think anyone's like, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think everyone's sitting there like, no, my perspective's the right one. No, mine's the right one.
So I think that for me, the actual business disagreement, I can see both sides. I'm a very rational person. And that I understand. And that I don't necessarily think someone did something wrong, besides the fact that she was secretly making more money. And we would talk about finances with each other all the time. I think when it became very clear someone was in the wrong is when I reached out to her to say, let's see if we can save this. She ignored me and enabled an entire smear campaign towards me and people I love. Because to me, that's insane. I
People
could never,
love like your boyfriend at the time, or
yes,
okay.
I could never fathom doing that to someone I thought was my best friend ever. I mean, you know, it's not like I f***ed her boyfriend. It's not like I did something horrific. We had a business disagreement. How are you going to enable all of our listeners, you know, to hate me and like try and like push this narrative? To me, that was wild.
So when all this is going down, you weren't living together anymore.
We were,
but you weren't in the house.
No.
And you were with a very serious boyfriend.
Yes.
So maybe that also, you were saying, like, has to do with some of the situation.
Yeah. I think it was, I get it. Like, if you're hanging out with your best friend every single day when they start dating someone, like, yeah, like it kind of sucks. I totally understand that. I think this was more insidious. I do. I think it was a control thing. The boyfriend that we're referring to, very, very smart, you know, graduated from Harvard.
And saw gaps.
He saw the business for what was for what it was.
And from an outside perspective.
Yes. And I think that I started to really, and I've always been very business oriented, but I think that I started to get more involved in the show and the business side of things. Whereas when the show started, I was more of a sidekick. So when I started to get the business knowledge, when I started to find my voice, when I started to be less of a sidekick and more of the front man of the show, the control that my co-host, best friend had, she was losing that control. And I think it was more of that.
That makes sense. I mean, you can see how all of this transpired with all this background.
I want to be respectful of the way I ask this, because it's not.
You don't need to be.
No. I always will be. But from your perspective, do you see how, you know, having a boyfriend who has that background, stepping in to a business that was established before he was involved, like, can you understand why like that could come off as threatening both to the entity that you were working with and to your former co-host?
Absolutely. And I'm really glad you asked that, because 1000%.
Because it just ups the ante real quick.
Absolutely. And I understood that very early on. And I remember having multiple conversations with her, like, you know, he said this, but tell me what you think. We don't need to listen to him. I can ask him if you want. And she was very persistent about saying, bring him in. Let me meet him. I want to talk to him about this. Put us in a group thread. You know, she kind of brought him in. So yes, I understand it from that perspective, but I don't, you know, she always had the upper hand. Always. She was making more money than me. She went to school for entertainment. This is something she's been preparing for her whole life. And I think that she always had the upper hand. When he came in, yes, I understand how that could be a little bit scary. However, for me, once you're part of my crew, once you're my best friend, once you've met my family, I'm not f***ing you over. And I think that was kind of where the disconnect started happening.
When did you realize that there was a complete miscommunication, and were you like, oh, shit? Like, did you anticipate everything that was gonna happen and go down?
No, not at all. I mean, do you mean by what went down?
Just like the video,
right.
I mean, all the different things that's going, and then on top of it, like, there's COVID. And so everyone's sitting at home waiting to see what's next on their phone.
Well, you guys built this crazy, I mean, it's the community you guys built is insane. It's massive.
It is.
And what I think people forget about both of you, which is why we wanted to start talking about your background and you as a human and as a person, is you kind of, I don't take this the wrong way, you guys built these characters. Like it was the Call Her Daddy character. Like you could see, like this was, so people almost felt like they were observing two people that were not even like real people. Right? It's like, we're watching these characters. And so when all that went down,
I can see what you're saying.
Everyone's invested in these characters like it's a sitcom, and they feel they can just rip and tear down and say whatever they want, because they forget that at the end of the day you're both humans.
It's almost like you guys were actresses, and they were picking on the character in the show.
Like no human being would sit around and be that cruel and mean to people online if they recognize them as other human beings. But I think because you guys had built this character in this massive show, that people felt like you guys were almost not real.
Yes. I think that there was some acting. I think there was a certain extent of me playing a character.
Sure. But that's same here. Like there's an entertainment element. Yeah.
Right. But honestly, not that much. Like my stories were real. My jokes were real. Most of it was real. It was just amplified.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
When all this is going down on the internet, like I remember there was like a week where everything I was being served was just the gnarliest thing ever. Are you on the internet, or did you, I mean, for like, if I was you, I would have just put my phone
for
on.
That week. It was so traumatic that I've kind of blacked it out. So when I think back to that time, I remember seeing things, and maybe I would just like watch something for a split second and then like drop my phone and like not look. But it's also kind of hard because I needed to know what the fuck was being said and what was going on. You know, I couldn't just be like living underneath a rock. I knew from the very beginning, this is so up. I need to speak my piece eventually and come back. So I would kind of force myself to watch stuff.
Well, she is really, you are really smart. There's something that you did that I don't know if this was strategic or you just did it. Silence is the best. And I say this even when you're dating, like I would go silent on him for like 4 days, just dead silent.
Yes.
Silence is golden. Remember like the movie? Like it is so powerful, and the fact that you were silent, I thought, that's smart. Right.
It was really, really smart. And I agree with you. I always tell women in particular, if a guy like does something f***ed up, hit him with the silent treatment. You acting like you're pissed will do nowhere near as much damage as icing them out and not responding.
Warfare.
I always tell Michael, everyone's like, what would you do if Michael cheated on you? Like cut his off. And I was like, what I would do if Michael cheated on me is nothing.
Right.
And sit with that.
Oh
nothing.
My God.
Not one thing.
And now you guys have a baby.
I would do nothing. I would sit there just nodding my head.
Yeah, she's terrifying. Yeah. My wife is a scary person.
But it's
chills.
Smart. It's smart.
So
the
smart.
silence is smart. So did you think, I need to be silent right now? This is not the time for me to come out.
I'm not going to lie to you. There were multiple instances where I was like, I'm putting out a fucking YouTube video right now. This is f***ed up. This is a lie.
Do you have anyone helping you at the time? Like anyone like supporting you?
Yeah, like kind of, but not.
You know why I think you were attacked so much? Because I think if it was a dispute between two former best friends and women, just you two, it would have been, okay, like we would have figured out who's on what side. It's because the boyfriend was involved. Everybody, everyone thinks that a man's controlling the narrative.
Exactly. That was the narrative that was put out there. But I think I knew, I was able to recognize that my old company, Barstool Sports, they are a huge media conglomerate. And I can come out and I can say all day long, they will be able to squash me, by sheer magnitude and content and just all the things that they can come out with and their following. I also knew that what was being said was a lie, and I always think the truth comes out. And I kind of always knew, like, over time, things will start being exposed without me there.
So what's interesting to me is that you don't have anyone to talk to. And I go through this a little bit in my career. Like I can't call my friends and explain
No.
You know,
can't cry
20
like, I have the
trolls
biggest
writing
show
on my
in the
post.
world, and,
no,
like,
you can't.
all
I
these
can't.
people are
I
following
can't
and
talk
yelling at
about
me.
what I do sometimes to my friends that are in different lines of work. They don't really understand. Like, how could you be affected? Like, you have 200 nice comments, but who are you like talking to? Even a therapist doesn't have the tools to handle this.
Right. This hits home. This one really hits home because even now I struggle with it.
Yeah, it's hard.
Who would I speak to? I would speak to my therapist, my mom, my boyfriend at the time, and my agent, I guess. And I would really actually just talk to anyone that would talk to me and that was experienced, you know? Scooter Braun, not to name drop. That was like...
He'd probably be very helpful, though. That's someone who'd be
right.
very
Like
helpful.
when he offered to give me advice, of course, I was like, yes, call me right now.
He's
like
the
I'm ready
perfect
to go. So I really reached out to a bunch of different sources.
And so, as this is going on, you're kind of looking, you're kind of not. Mm-hmm. And like, what are you dealing with within your DMs and comments from the community?
I think I blocked it out. It was 90% pretty evil, and it was nonstop. I would get thousands a day for weeks, and I would try not to look. I think the DMs I definitely like stayed away from. You know, it's funny. I remember people started commenting on my Instagram picture, my most recent one, right? That's where everyone would like comment their. And I turned off the comments, and then I had a moment where I thought to myself, that turn them back on and just like let people say whatever they want to say. I think there's like I could like pull up that picture right now. I think there's close to 30,000 comments that are all like, you, you're disgusting, you're horrible, you're letting a guy control you, with which, as someone who was raised by a single mom, being told, oh, your boyfriend's controlling you, that really pissed me off, you know, because that is not the type of bitch I am.
What kind of narrative did they give him? And behind the scenes, was he actually like a nice guy that was trying to help?
He was the nicest guy, and I think that for a lot of people now, it's extremely apparent that we were being very exploited. I mean, I said this on my first episode when I came back. They were making 10 million on the low end. I'm going to go ahead and guesstimate. And it's actually not even guessing. I can just do the math. They're making about 14 million. So me taking home 400,000 of that, that's exploitation.
But I can see, like, so here's what I'm saying about perspective. Like, I can see from your perspective and fully respect it, but can you also see
how Barstool's like, we made them type thing?
Well, not how they made you, but how they're obviously like, they plug you into a massive community. They have the infrastructure to produce merch and all these things. And so
I think, you know, them getting paid 13 million is enough.
Yeah. I mean, there was probably,
how I thought about it.
Here's what I think. There was probably time to renegotiate. And I bet like that maybe that conversation didn't get to happen because it just blew the up and everyone started fighting.
No, we were renegotiating for like a year.
Okay. So that conversation was going on, but then as this fight blows up between you, it's like, it's hard because if I'm in that position, I'm like, okay, I got this great show with these two people, but I'm also looking at, they're going to hate each other. And like how, like, it's almost like the thing now,
But
you know what I mean?
Here's my question. Maybe was this part of the strategy though, to gain more attention, to have the breakup?
No.
You don't think that they used, like, leveraged the breakup to...
Dave Portnoy was talking to Alex. He was calling me. We were talking throughout the day, and he was like, the show, he said, I've asked around a lot who could, out of the two of you, take this show and run with it. And I always get, you know, split responses. This show is going to make me more money if you guys stay together. That's what I ultimately want.
Sure. Of course.
That's what he said.
Of course. Which makes sense.
Right. And she just didn't want to do it. She didn't want to do it at that point.
Yeah, so he's in the tough position where he's like, okay, we got this great IP, this show blew up. Like,
I don't blame him for what he did.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever said that. I don't blame him for what he did in terms of taking, you know, the other half of the show and running with it. I just blame him for being like a disgusting, repulsive human being.
Was he like that when you were working with him?
Disgusting, repulsive.
Or was it a side that you hadn't seen?
I think he was. I just didn't know. I didn't know what Barstool Sports was. I didn't think that much about it. Like, I was extremely naive walking into that.
It's almost though, I think in the long run, the naive part's going to work for you because you were like thrown to the wolves and now you can come out and collect yourself and like not be f***ed with.
Oh, yes.
Well, and here's the silver lining too. It's like, if this was not going to be a thing that you guys did for the rest of your careers, right? Like, it's probably better now that you have yours and she's on her own, and like you can build your own brand now.
Michael, I think about that all the time. I think that's one of the best things to come out of this. I think that business partnerships, I read somewhere, have a higher divorce rate than marriages. It's very hard being 50-50 partners on something, and I think this is a way better situation for me.
Well, and here's the beautiful thing about it, and Dave Portnoy and Barstool would recognize this. Like, talent is talent, right? Like, if you're a talented person, it's like, it's not a network that decides that. It's the consumer, it's the audience, and the audience is ultimately the one that's in charge. I always tell people this: like, if you have the talent, you have the chops, like, the audience will decide who gets to be the success story, right? Like, there's going to be bumps and ups and downs along the way, but like, nobody can stop talent when it's rising.
Yep. Yeah.
Like, it's the consumer's decision.
Do you think there's a part of your ex co-host that wanted to host the show for a while by herself?
Yeah. No question.
So like when this all happened, it was like, let's capitalize on this, on like, just move it out.
Looking back on it, I don't think our friendship was real, even though I felt it was very real. I think I was her ticket to getting fame. I think she realized I was talented and funny, and she kind of used that to get to where she wanted to go. And I think that, you know, in the back of her mind, she was like, if I can keep Sofia on, that's good because people do like her. But if I can't, I'm okay with that too. And also, you know, when you're doing a show and it's two women, people are constantly talking about who's hotter, who's funnier, who's better, who's more talented. And I think that started to get to her also.
Yeah, that
not that they were like, Sophia's like so much better, but those comments.
It's just a comparison.
When you look back on the relationship, are there good parts about, like, what do you think is good about her? Like qualities?
No.
Silence.
I think she's really pretty. Personality, character, morals, empathy. I don't think they're there. I can say that.
I mean, yeah, you can say whatever the fuck you want. You have your own show now.
Yeah.
Did you know that there was going to be a time where you would be able to share your story and feel comfortable with what you're doing? I mean, you're here, you're decked out in your merch. It's so cute. You have your media company. I think everything you've done too is like, even this is such a small thing, but I love branding. Even your Instagram bio, it's hilarious. It's like all the things that people said about you. It's basically what you did is you took your power back.
Yeah. Yes. And I've always been self-deprecating. I've always been, you know, that. And I knew what I was up against, and I couldn't go out and convince people to think otherwise. It was like, own your and just roll with it that way. You're asking me if I regret anything about like the friendship?
I think I'm just asking if you, when all this was going down, did you know that you were going to have strategy to build a business and do a podcast and a media company and merch? Did you have the foresight to be like, okay, I'm going to launch my brand?
Yeah.
You knew.
Well, because there's cancel culture, and then there's like what you went through, right? Which is like, it was so extreme. And I think, listen, there's the cancel culture where like there's actual criminals and people that need to be held accountable. That's a different thing. Like those people, it's a different story.
Yes.
And then there's cancel culture in terms of like somebody said something or did something wrong, and now the internet's going to attack it. Like that happens. But the scale that you received that at was, I mean, it's rare. It's like, I think there's like Logan Paul has probably gone through it. You have gone, like there's a very small group of people like yourself that have had that type of massive level of attacks on the internet from complete crazy strangers
in the world, by the way, because the internet is not that old. In the world,
and think about like in your personal life, somebody says something mean to you somewhere, and like you go, like when you have thousands and thousands and thousands of people doing it to you constantly in media outlets, writing about it constantly, like that's got to be extremely challenging. I consider myself a pretty tough person, but I don't know what I would do in that situation.
It was extremely, extremely challenging. And I think,
and it's not like you killed somebody or hurt somebody. It's like,
and that's what I wanted to bring up. You know, you mentioned Logan Paul. He said something extremely insensitive, right? In a YouTube video. I didn't say something insensitive. I didn't use a racial slur. I didn't.
You literally just had a falling out.
I had a falling out with a friend and I was canceled. And so it's a very, specific situation. And I think I don't think I fully recovered from it, to be completely honest with you.
This may be a up thing for me to say as a man, but for all of this female empowerment, and especially for a show like Call Her Daddy, which is about female empowerment, it was very quick to try to tear another female
isn't
down.
That interesting, the irony of that.
And I'm not saying I'm not taking a side on who's right or wrong in your dispute. Like there's multiple stories, but I do think it's interesting that a community that's about uplifting and empowering women was so quick to tear down another woman.
Yeah, it's extremely interesting, and it's extremely interesting how, because I didn't agree with the business element, how people were so quick to say, oh, it was the guy behind the scenes. Sofia couldn't have thought of that herself. Sofia doesn't have any business sense.
Which is so ironic, though, because
pulling the,
there's a guy
strings
behind the scenes on the other end, though, too.
Right. Well, and no one wanted to point that one out. Isn't that funny?
He maybe just overplayed the hand and got overeager and inserted himself in business that the problem is he inserted himself in business that he wasn't part of.
Do you mean the boyfriend?
The boyfriend. So I can see why he received the flack that he did, because he wasn't necessarily part of the overall deal, and he wasn't like necessarily.
They were pretty. I think I disagree with you. I think people were too mean to him, and I don't know anything about him.
I'm not justifying the response.
I don't think anyone deserves the amount of criticism.
No, I'm not justifying the. I'm just saying that I can see why he got the reception he got, because he inserted himself somewhere where maybe he was like, people were like, why are you here, right?
I disagree, just because, me and her are A, adults, B, we brought him in. It wasn't like he was like, trying to get in our business. Like, come on, he's like an executive at HBO. He makes enough money. He has very big connections. He didn't need to get in our business. And C, I would like to ask you, Michael, like, would you give Lauren your business advice?
You would would be just as involved.
No, of course. But here's the thing. I think what I'm saying is if you don't have the context of, hey, us two business partners brought this person in to represent us.
Yeah, the audience, I think what Michael's trying to say is the audience didn't have the context.
No, what I'm trying to say is maybe the audience didn't have the context, and maybe the network didn't have the context, and all of a sudden there's this guy, and like I feel bad for him in a way, because if somebody would have said, like, this is the person who's representing us now and this is the deal, but the audience and everyone that's aware, like, they're like, who is this person that's just randomly here? So
right.
I'm just
you're
saying,
sympathizing with the audience is what you're saying.
No, I'm sympathizing with him and you and the audience, because I don't think nobody really had the full story of like how this all came to be.
Right. I think the context was off, which is why I think I was so interested in having you on the podcast, because I think that there wasn't a lot of context.
You give the context, and now someone can understand, okay, that's how he got involved. It wasn't like some guy just came out of nowhere and started like taking over Call Her Daddy.
It sounds like it was a joint. Everyone wanted him involved.
Everyone wanted him involved. Yeah. And, he wasn't saying anything crazy. He wasn't like, and then like, I'll take 15%. We were being exploited, like, bottom line. Like, that's just what it is.
The way that it was positioned, though, to someone from the outside is like, all of a sudden a guy comes out of nowhere, starts trying to take over this business. And if that's what I'm saying, like, people didn't have that context, which is why I think they got so angry. But if now that they do, they're like, oh. And I imagine you've probably along the way had people that attacked you probably reach out and apologize at this. I mean, maybe not everybody.
A lot of people have reached out and been like, holy shit, now it makes more sense. There were a few people that were like, from the very beginning, I knew something was off. However, I sympathize and I understand why people believed it, because even now, if I'm, scrolling Daily Mail or whatever, I believe kind of what I read, right? Not so much now after that happened to me, but I used to be that way. If something is put in the media and like I was being mentioned in the New York Post every day for like a week straight, reading those tabloids, I used to believe it. And so I don't blame them. I really don't, especially because we had built such a close relationship with our listeners. I'm talking about sex. I'm talking about like being so personal. And all of the sudden, you listen to two women that are best friends, right? And all of a sudden, one of them are completely gone. And one of them is saying, look, this is what happened. This person is da-da-da-da-da. I would believe them. I wasn't there to stand up for myself.
Do you think that there is a little bit of the same energy that you were getting from your podcast host with the audience, with you having a boyfriend? And let me explain. Single Sofia, a lot of guys, whatever, all the that you were talking about, and all of a sudden you get a boyfriend. And then all of a sudden it turns the dynamic to the audience.
She's not the fun single crazy girl
She's not the fun
anymore.
single crazy girl anymore, and this boyfriend's taking her away from the audience. As an observer, I think that was also an issue that maybe the audience didn't even know they were feeling.
Yeah, you know what? Maybe. I always thought it wasn't an issue because it's interesting to hear someone be dynamic and grow and like, hey, I was the slew. But now I'm, in a relationship. Also, I have stories from being younger because I was out of control for days. But Lauren, I think that's a really good point. Maybe that was part of it too.
You said the audience felt like your friend.
Yeah.
And with your friendship with your ex-partner,
yeah,
she was upset you got a boyfriend. The audience was probably, and also I've noticed too with the media and with audiences is there always has to be a villain.
Yes.
So
yeah,
who's going to be the villain out of you four?
Exactly.
The community, your ex-partner, you, or the boyfriend.
Right.
The easiest one is the boyfriend.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Also, Barstool and Dave Portnoy have a history of, misogyny and sexism. They can't be going after a girl as hard as they can go after a guy.
Yeah.
So I think that played into it as well.
What was his feeling on it? I have a lot of empathy for him. Because he didn't ask to sign up for all this. I mean,
no.
you were doing the podcast. You kind of knew what you signed up for. He didn't ask for this. And then he's like thrown into the media.
Right. I think it was really hard. It was really hard for both of us.
Yeah, I feel really bad for him. I mean,
Well, the whole
here's
why I feel bad for everyone in the story. Outside of now, it looks like everything's going to work out. It's going to be successful, and people are going to go their separate ways. But I think what happened with Call Her Daddy was such a phenomenon. Like something like that doesn't just happen, right? Like, I mean, it did for you, but it's so rare. And I think everyone's like, holy shit, like there's lightning in a bottle. It came out of nowhere. We're all like, everyone knows about us now. Everyone knows the show. Barstool's sitting there like, holy fuck, we have the biggest show in the world. You guys are like, holy shit, we're the biggest show in the world.
Yeah.
The audience is like, what the fuck's going on? And so it's just going so fast. Nobody actually had time to step back and be like, what are we all doing here?
Yes.
And you're trying to keep up with it. Like maybe you did have those conversations, but you're doing it while this thing is going so fast. We're like, okay, well, we're negotiating now, but the show's getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So it's like you have no context to be like, where is this really going to land?
Yes. I will say though, me and her had made a business decision to leave 8 months prior, and then the famous rooftop meeting, right, that he was talking about, and like I offered them this and I did this, and within 30 seconds of him, offering whatever the fuck it was, which was nothing different than anything he had offered 8 months before that, she switched and was like, we're staying here, we're not leaving. We were prepared. We knew where we were taking the show. We knew what we were going to do. There was a lot of planning. And when people are like, oh my God, Sofia's boyfriend like did all of this behind the scenes, Alex and I are big girls. We're big girls. We have to look at the numbers. We have to sign the deals. She would talk to managers and agents. I would as well. And it was planned for a really long time that we were going to leave. So that's the part that's really weird to me, is how one conversation with Dave, everything changed.
When did you realize, oh, the podcast is over? Through her YouTube video or before that? Like, when were
her
you like,
YouTube video? That was it.
When you watched that, were you just like...
I remember standing in the kitchen with my mom, and I remember watching it, and you can't imagine the anxiety. Like, you cannot imagine. It's as if, you know, your best friend that knows every single thing about you, and they're acting like so treacherous, and now all of a sudden they're making a YouTube video. I was like, this is not my friend, and I don't know what she's gonna say. We all have like skeletons in the closet. So the anxiety was insane, and I just remember watching it, and I just remember, I don't know how to explain the feeling. I just remember thinking, like, what an evil. That's it.
Did you immediately want to text message her or call her?
No.
Or you just done?
I had, you know what? I texted her once and I said, let's discuss. I think it was a week later, I texted her a second time and I said, you know, not even about you and I, what about our listeners? Because the show won't be the same. It just won't. So I think we should have a final conversation. She didn't respond. And if you don't respond to someone that you know, claimed was your best friend and like family, then it's done. It's over. I'm not going to text a third time.
The anxiety that you must have went through, I don't think I have seen anything like it in my whole career. And I really mean this, like, before the internet, there was no way for all these people to get to you. What were some tools that you did to battle the anxiety? Like, are you drinking a bottle of wine? Are you going on a walk? Are you like doing breath work? Like, the anxiety is so much pressure.
Right.
What was the outlet?
I think it was numbing. And I don't necessarily think that's healthy. And it wasn't even through alcohol or anything like that. It was my whole system would just shut down and turn off. And it was like I couldn't have a feeling because it was like that traumatic.
How were the people around you helping you? Like, what did your mom do?
I mean, my mom's, you know, doing her best and being like, we're going to do this and like think about it this way and like don't worry, and you know, she was really good.
Let me switch it up to get off this subject because I feel like you've explained it, like I feel like you've explained it really eloquently. Who is the most famous guy or what does it rhyme with?
Are you talking about the most famous guy I've in my life?
Yeah.
I can't say. I really couldn't.
What does it rhyme with?
I'm not going to say it.
Okay, since you do host a podcast that has so much about sex, I want to take a left turn and talk more about sex. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Sorry, we just like took you down a whole thing.
Well,
I
I think it's important for you to be able to tell your story and your version and give context because
because people can still hate you now if they want, but but they have the context now, right?
Of
at least
course.
so there's two perspectives, and I think like
a hate listener. A loyal listener.
Right. Thank you. I mean, I had to be silent for 4 months, so it feels good to be able to talk about it now.
I've noticed something that's like very common, which is people like to build people up to tear them down.
Oh.
And a good example of this is, do you know Something Navy?
No.
She went through a huge controversy with COVID, like was really, really bad.
Okay.
And everyone thought she was like the best blogger ever. Like she had this huge following. People were obsessed with her. And then this scandal happened and people just ripped her. And I've watched the same thing happen with the morning toast. Like people build these people up. They build them as high as they can build them in the sky. And then they rip them down.
Yeah.
It's like, you can get famous, but don't get too famous.
Interesting. I do think people, they kind of love canceling other people. They love it. It's not, I don't think sometimes it's genuine and someone deserves it. But I think a lot of wanting to cancel someone comes from a not good place.
No,
You're
it comes
not
from a
sense.
place where people, most of those people, and these are the hate people, have never been in a position of power or authority. And all of a sudden they band together with other people like that, and they figure, oh, now we've got a little bit of power and control, and we can ruin
Yes.
somebody else, and we can do it together. Right?
Yes.
And so it's like you get the most miserable people in the world together. No, I'm not. Listen, I say this all the time. People hate me for it. You get the
Yeah.
most miserable, angry
It's
people
true.
that have never had any power or control, probably
Right.
in their own life either. And you put them together and you give them a sense of what they think is power and control, even though it's not, because you can't. I mean, you're still here. You're on a podcast. You're talking. You're a person.
Right.
And they have this moment where like, yeah, we did it. We tore someone down. And it's just like broken people doing
Yeah.
this to try to break other people to be more like them.
I think
I agree.
Instagram should have better guidelines for what you went through.
I completely agree. I think Instagram is really, really bad with that. The amount of accounts made about me or the boyfriend, they're like still up on Instagram, even though like I had me and all of my friends report it. So I don't know. Have you guys ever been canceled for anything?
I'm sure they-
I've had two. I've had a couple things where people. I had a Facebook group.
It's
where,
an illusion. No, but it's an illusion. Like,
But I don't. I just want to say that I've never experienced anything like you have.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what's so funny? And Michael said this earlier. You're not canceled. You're still here.
Here's what I'm
you
saying.
have
It's
your-
an illusion. People
you
get
have your own
together. They say
podcast.
you're canceled. And I'm like, what the f- do you mean I'm canceled? You can't stop me from talking on a mic
That's
every day.
so
You can't stop me from sharing. You can stop listening. You can scream. You could go yell at advertisers. But I'm not. It's not going to change anything that we're doing. Like I'm still
Yeah.
here. Haha. Still here. Too bad. Like you can't. Like when I'm saying uncancel, I'm like it's a fake illusion. You can't. Like people can. It's the internet. You can post whatever you want.
It's true. I mean, people have done like horrifying shit and they're still not canceled. So yeah, it is. It's an illusion.
It's the thing about like we talked about Howard Stern earlier on your show.
Yeah.
And if you watch that movie Private Parts, it's actually a really great book.
I am so obsessed with that
So
movie.
you know, like when they're going through the ratings, and he's like, "Well, what's happening to the people that like him?" They're like, "Well, the ratings are going up." Like, "Well, what about the people that fucking hate him?" He's like, "Those are through the roof." It's like the people
Yeah.
that hate you the most actually end up giving you the most. In this case, traffic, listens, views,
Yes.
because they can't turn the fuck away. Right?
Yes.
Like it's almost like the people that hate listen
do you
more.
feel like it's amazing that you've come out with all this merch and your podcast and your network and like you're just crushing life and using all the different things that people held against you to like propel this career? Like that must feel good.
I am laughing because like, yeah, it should f***ing feel good. And I have moments where it feels good. But again, I think I'm not fully out of what happened. And I have moments where I'm still upset and feel a little bit down. But it's really commendable what I've done. Yes. That goes back to me being like an artist or the talent or whatever, like so self-critical, just like the most, you know?
I think you need your Instagram bio on a shirt.
I have it on merch.
Oh my God, you do? I'm going to go buy that.
Yes.
That
We
you
should
already
have
have-
brought her that one. I'm going to send you it.
Well, you have the bio. I think that bio is genius.
The basic, greedy, lazy, submissive. Oh, that's
what her bio is.
that was the first item to come out.
That's amazing.
I'm going to send you one. You're going
See,
to wear it.
you used what everyone said and you put it on merch. I mean, it's
Yes.
kind of genius.
Yes.
Okay, I need to ask about sex tips because so many people are asking this. This is a
Okay.
main question. So now you're in a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
How do you keep it spicy? Like a youthful spicy.
I rarely give him sex, so when I do, it's like amazing.
That's a good tip, actually.
Don't get any ideas, Lauren.
Deprive,
Right?
and then just like pop.
No, listen. You're in the beginning phases. You can play those games. You can't withhold
I
sex in a
wanna know.
13-year-old marriage. You can't do that. That ain't gonna work.
We need tips. We need all the tips.
You know what? I have been so busy that I really am not as much as I should. I am definitely not sucking dick. There's no should, but I cannot remember the last time like I gave a.
Why? I love a.
You like doing it?
Yeah.
God bless
Even when
her,
you're
huh?
tired.
My stepmom gave me the best piece of
You wonder
advice.
why we've been together so
I
long.
know.
She
I'm like,
goes,
wow.
I used to bartend until 1 a.m. and I would come home so tired. And then if he wanted to have sex, I'd be like, I'm drained from making drinks and talking to people and all this. And I complained to her and I thought she was going to be like, oh yeah, like you don't need to do it if you don't want to. And she goes, Lauren, you f***ing rally. And
Wow.
I have never, since she told me that, I have never turned my husband down for anything.
Ever.
Let me give you the
I
reverse.
rally. If he wants to have sex, I rally and have sex.
This is maybe going to be sexist, but let me say
Do
this.
it.
So,
Say it.
okay, so you get the response like, "Oh, I'm tired. I don't like giving." But if a girl says that too, like that happens in relationships. But what if at the reverse, if the guy, like, say like something was bothering my wife and she's like, I really got to get my feelings. I'm like, you know what? I really don't like having conversation with you about feelings. Like I don't like doing that.
You're comparing your
What I'm
feelings.
saying is that would be a deal breaker, right? If I was like, I don't like talking about feelings, like too bad. It's the same thing when a girl's like, I don't like giving. It's like, well, there's a give and take in every relationship. It's not, it doesn't.
I would think you like giving for how much you talk about sex.
I was about to bring that up. So I'm kind of seen as like this sex like goddess or expert or whatever I think it's okay for people to go through phases where I'm not like sucking the dick every single night. Now that you just said that rally thing though, like I'm thinking about it differently. I also though, there's something that, and Lauren, you might disagree with me, is for women, they tend to have a lower sex drive than men, right? I think that you absolutely do need to rally. But I also think that there's something very important to having sex when you want to. I have noticed when I've dated guys that are such horn dogs. I mean, they all are, right? I was dating a guy that he wanted to have sex 2 times a day. And that's what we were doing. And finally I was like, I am not doing this shit anymore. Like, I'm going to fuck you when I want to. Way more frequent orgasms, way more excited to like jump in bed with him. Sometimes it like, if you're trying to force yourself to fuck consistently, sometimes it can like start to feel like a chore.
Well, it sounds like maybe there's a mismatch. Like I would never want my wife to feel forced. Like I wouldn't like, if I came home and I could just tell like she's not into it, I'm like, that's not gonna turn me on either.
Right.
I'm like, that feels a little weird, right?
No,
but,
you're the type that wants like me involved.
Yeah, I mean, I never want to feel like, I mean, I don't like personally for me, I don't think it's a turn on to hook up with someone who's not into hooking up with you, right?
Of course,
and so like if you're like, oh, like that's not fun, like it just feels.
Yes.
I was listening to you on Heather McDonald and I kept thinking, is it a lot of pressure to date guys after having this show on sex? Because they probably are going to expect you to be on steroids.
No. For me, no.
Not at all.
No. I think because I'm dating men who are emotionally developed and are smart enough to understand that I can talk about sex and not necessarily be like the best in bed or whatever, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
What's something that you've learned on the podcast, either one, that blew your mind about sex? Where you were like, oh, that's such a good tip.
Something I've learned is in like a technique I have or just like some wild.
Either.
That men, there are actually a good amount of men that like sounding.
What's that?
Which is sticking a thin, small thing in their wiener.
Ooh, that.
Wait, no, I talked about it and I had so many emails and DMs about it.
Sounds so painful.
It's called sounding. And there was like a nurse that wrote in and was like, I found like a needle in like a guy's, but men like literally sticking in the wiener.
Do you want me to stick my blackhead popper? It's long and skinny. Yeah. Maybe a straw. Yeah, can I stick?
I hear stories like this and I'm like, am I like the most boring dude on the planet?
How come I can't stick something up your tonight?
No, listen, we've made it this far. We've made it this far without that. I think we're just going to cut that one out.
So you take something and you stick it down the.
Yes.
If there's someone listening right now that likes sounding, I want to have you on the podcast, and I'm not judgmental about it. I just want to know.
I want to have you on the podcast.
I want to learn all about it. Like, is the penis erect? Is it limp? What's happening?
Lauren, I want you to try it on Michael.
I will.
Please.
That's absolutely not happening.
My friend was telling me all about roping.
Roping or groping?
Roping.
What the fuck is that?
So my friend was like, we were at the bar and he was telling me about milking, how you milk the prostate and they come from the, and then I'm like, well, what else do you do? And he's like, well, he's like, one time I got roped, and I'm like, what's that? And he said that you tie together like baby towels, like little towels, and then you stick it up the, and then you pull it out like a lawnmower, like beads. And apparently it's like really hot.
I feel like that could really someone up.
Can I rope you?
Why the would that be hot?
Why would sticking a needle up your be hot? Listen, there's I think there's like sex and then there's stuff like that, and that I guess it falls in the cat. I don't want to make anybody uncomfortable.
We don't kink shame.
I don't kink shame. But to me that seems like a lot of work.
What about my acupuncturist was telling me that he used to work in the ER and there's gerbils up the all the time.
I haven't heard. I mean, I've heard of it. I mean, do you guys like? Have you ever talked about that, or is that on the DL?
No, I have tried with Michael. I do not like it.
It's hard to do.
And I'll tell you why. I just feel like I don't shame it at all. Tons of my friends love it. Like, do you? For me, I feel like that hole, and I don't know if you guys feel like that, it's supposed to come out, not in. Like, there's something
but
like,
this is like where
intuitively that for me it just.
We talked about
something going in there just doesn't feel right.
But here's the thing. We talked about on your show, like what makes a relationship work. Like that's not my thing either. Like, yes, we tried it and it's happened. It's like one of the things that you check it on the list.
That's
like,
a really good point.
But but I know there's a lot of people that are into it. And like, if you're into it, you should be with somebody else who's into it. And if you're not and you're like deprived in the bedroom, then that, like we talk about this all the time on the show. Like if you're deprived in any area of a relationship, you're not getting like either emotionally fulfilled, physically fulfilled, like all that.
Are you an lover?
Then it's not going to work, right? So you can't be with someone who's
Has anyone ever said that?
like it's, you have to be with someone who's into it.
I'm trying to answer Michael. I'm trying to ignore that.
Don't pop a boner over this conversation.
I'm not an lover. I've done it before. I'm open to doing it again, but it's not like a go-to.
I feel like you have to use a vibrator when you do it, or it's too gnarly.
On your
yeah.
I mean, to me, not necessarily, but it's not easy. Let's just say that. And Michael, I agree with you. I think two people need to be very compatible. However, I will say there might be stuff I'm not into that I'm willing to try.
Sure.
Give me an example. Oh, okay.
I've done that once.
Oh, wait, hold on. I have 100 questions about this.
Okay.
No,
Why can't I you?
We're not
well, just once. I just want to see what it's like.
Listen,
Michael,
it's just not my thing.
You said no to two things now. Like,
yeah, you're kind
I said no to roping and getting a needle up my.
Don't
the
be fourth one you have to say.
I just want to peg you to say I pegged you.
Give me an easy one. You're like, can we put a needle up there? No. Can we? Can you put baby towels up my? And rip them out like a lawnmower? Are you kidding me?
Hold on. How did you go about like getting the? And did the person who was asked to be pegged, or did you just pull the?
Is not nearly as extreme as the three things I just said before this.
Okay, so the started as a joke. We were having like kinky sex, threesome, okay? We were having kinky sex, and me and the girl were like, "Oh my god, like let's him, like let's do it, like with a." And then we were like really fucked up. We went to like a sex shop and got like a. And it wasn't I don't remember. It was like a dare or a joke that I was gonna like him for like 2 seconds. He didn't like genuinely want it. I just need to say, like, putting a and a guy in the butt was the weirdest feeling like ever. I think I have a very feminine energy and I tend to be more the submissive role in bed. Me like and like having a dick Instagram was so weird. A what?
You should have Instagram storied it.
I know. I should have.
So I need to go buy. Is it called a or is it called a? Okay, and I need to
divorce papers.
Come on. It would be just funny for me. Like I get off on stuff. That's
Michael, you
like
said
that.
things. You said no to 4 things now.
Yeah.
Okay, I feel like I've been given the 4 hardest things.
No, wait, 5, because you said no to a threesome.
Do you
on my episode, Sofia With An F, go listen.
Because I've partaken in threesomes before, I said no to a threesome with Lauren because I think she's too crazy to keep a level.
No, I'm not. Not if the person was random.
Listen, there's no way, Lauren. You said that. No. There's no way.
No, I really don't think so. If it was a random person.
All right. Here come the DMs. Now the DMs are really going to start. Open the door.
No, but I don't.
You have to go through Lauren. Anyone listening?
Yeah, you do. I mean, if Megan Fox wants to have a threesome, like I'm available.
No,
If Megan Fox wants me to cheat on my boyfriend, I'm available.
The girl that Megan Fox, the girl that Machine Gun Kelly was dating while he met Megan Fox just came out and said, I don't blame him for cheating on me with Megan Fox. I would cheat on me with Megan Fox.
Wait, I love that, and it's true.
There's some people that it's like, listen, if Brad Pitt comes along and you get a shot, Lauren, I'm like I can't blame you.
Brad Pitt has like a girthy.
Brad Pitt.
I bet he's hung like a horse.
He's either hung like a horse.
I bet.
I don't know.
What about George Clooney? Do you think he is?
I feel like it's a thick one.
I do too.
To be honest,
sprinkled with a little like salt and pepper.
Sophia, to be honest with you, it's something I haven't put a lot of thought into.
Is George Clooney's?
I'll think about it tonight.
Ocean's 11.
Let me know.
Yeah,
let me know.
I'll let you know later.
Okay, what's the trick to a threesome? Like what you have seemed like you have a lot of experience. What's the tips and tricks? Number one, not being that your significant other ever seats you in the back and the threesome person in the front seat.
Guys, yeah, that we talked about that on my podcast. So tips and tricks. I would say do it with a random, number one. Number two, and this is going to sound f***ed up, I think that try it in a relationship that you're either A, not that serious about, or B, you've been with each other for so long and there's just so much unwavering trust.
So it's like you again, you wake up, it's you again. Like,
yes, like that type of
Here I am again.
Oh, yeah.
I get it.
It's like a Jeffrey. Do you guys remember that from Get Him to the Greek?
No.
Have you seen that?
No.
Then never mind.
Is that the one with
Michael, we're too old.
No, it's the one with Russell Brand, right?
With who?
With Russell Brand? No, is that not?
Yes.
I know.
Yes.
I'm plugged in, Lauren.
Yeah, I think if it's like a new relationship, like the guy I'm with now, I've been into threesomes. I don't want to do one with him.
What, does he want to do one?
No.
He said, I don't want to do one.
He was like, it's just not that interesting to me.
Some guys say that.
Yeah.
That's the thing. That's what happens, I think. It's not like, I think once any sexual act, unless it becomes your main thing that you do, like once, because if you've never done something, like you've never had a threesome, it's extremely interesting. Like my wife hasn't had a threesome.
Yes.
So if you've never done it's interesting. Anything that's foreign as you've been doing, like I got to try that. But once you do something, like, okay, like it's not as alluring as it was if it's everything.
Pressure for the guy too.
Oh, big time.
That's not talked about enough.
Yeah, I've actually talked about this a little bit before, not really. Like, you have to go in there and, make sure that you are pleasuring two women at the same time and you're not giving one more attention and the whole thing.
Have you ever been in a threesome where the guy is giving the other girl more attention, and what do you do?
I haven't. I haven't. You know what's funny is me and my best friend, we hooked up with this guy and he was giving me more attention than her, and she didn't even end up f***ing him at the end of the night. And we always joke because he gave me chlamydia and she didn't get it. Because
so that
he
was a blessing.
Yeah.
Wait, is the best friend that you're talking about the ex-podcast host?
No. Oh my God, no.
That was never hookup.
No. There's certain friends you can do kinky shit with, and then certain friends you can't. Don't you feel that?
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
You know what I mean?
Remember in 7th grade?
Yeah.
That one friend.
Yeah, I think about it all the time.
No, there are certain friends. I know what you're saying. Also, there's certain friends that you just don't want to go there with.
Yes.
Maybe they don't have sexual energy. I don't know.
Yep. I totally agree with that. Yes.
Okay.
I've got one really crazy wife. I don't need any more crazies. I don't need any other things. Right?
You don't like things you can't control.
No, I don't like more. I already have if there's if there's a crazy limit at 10, she's at 10 and a half. Right. So I don't.
You have your hands full.
Even if I got someone that was chill, that's like putting my meter to 15. Right.
Yeah, that's true. And then you have to deal with them afterwards.
That's probably awkward to wake up the next morning and roll over and it's
you know what? That's another thing actually is one time I woke up from a threesome and they were snuggling and I was on the side. It was my boyfriend.
What did you do?
I don't even remember.
Are your feelings hurt?
I was came in with pots and pans. I'm wake the fuck up.
But see, this is what's up is say you're the man in that situation and the girl that's the guest is trying to cuddle. Would you be get the fuck off me? It's over. We're done like now I gotta go.
I
like,
know.
Like, what are you supposed to do? Like you can't be like, listen, I can't cuddle you. I gotta cuddle here. You go over there.
You
lay
put
in,
the pillow in between.
you walk out
Come
quietly.
on.
Don't come back again.
Let me give a tip for guys. If you're doing a threesome, don't cuddle. You can't cuddle.
this is what-
Cuddling is too intimate.
The tip is the girl can't sleep in the same bed. She
I
has
don't
to
want-
go sleep in another.
I don't want a set of 80 rules when I go have sex. You know
What
what I
do you
mean?
mean? You have to have rules.
But this
you
is what
have
I'm,
to have rules.
But this is what I'm saying. And then
Yeah.
everyone has to be on the same page of the rules, and I don't think it can happen with 3 or 4. We've had people on the show that are like, do like, you know, like we had this one couple, and it's like they dated other people and fucked other people, but then came together, and like it was like this whole crazy thing. Long story short, it didn't fucking work out. It was a whole show
Right.
because there's too many people get too many emotions, right?
Yeah.
Is the
Yeah.
guy you're dating now the one?
TBD. I don't know.
But you like him a lot.
Yes.
And can you still be friends with Suit Man?
Yes.
You can still be friends.
Best friends.
Really?
Uh-huh.
That's cool. Mm-hmm. Not a lot of girls can say that, I feel, about their ex.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you're having a happy ending.
Yes.
I feel that for you. I think
Yeah.
you're going to have a really happy ending.
Thank you so much.
And you're the dark horse, and people better watch out.
yes, the dark horse.
And put it
what
on merch.
Yeah. I have a really good feeling about my future, and I am so happy that you guys invited me to come on. Because,
course.
you know, for a while there, I was not the dark horse, I was the black sheep, where there were certain people that like didn't want to bring me on their shows and stuff like that, you know? So
Really?
not so much anymore that I like made a comeback and stuff, but yeah, for a minute there, it was like, we don't want to, it wasn't so much we don't want to with Sofia, it was we don't want to with that media conglomerate and that psycho boss, you know, and like go up against them.
It's important to hear your side of the story. And I think that you should remember the people that have
Stayed there.
remember the people that have said no, you can't come on
Oh,
our show.
trust me, I remember them. There was a huge brand deal, and they were scared of what my old boss, Dave, would have done. And they tried to work with me later on, and I said no.
I don't think he's that unreasonable though. Like I said, I think everyone just ended up in this crazy situation, and like, I mean, at the end of the day, it's just business. I think
I'm
like,
going to ask you this one question though. If someone was making $14 million and I was getting paid $400,000, you wouldn't be having it.
no,
You
but I
wouldn't.
could understand. But listen, I come from the world of like, I understand how IP and contracts and like, so let me give you an example. Let's take all of us out of this. Netflix goes and buys the rights to Stranger Things and puts it out there. They think, hey, I hope this is going to be a big thing, but if like it's not, whatever. Like nobody anticipates like sometimes these things just blow the fuck up.
But let me tell you something. The second that Stranger Things becomes a hit, all the actors get
everyone
the ante gets
of course,
up.
everyone renegotiates.
Exactly.
You have to be able to evolve.
No, I get that.
With
Right.
where the consumer attention is, and if
I
it's
do
consumer
think though,
attention.
in this case, like you said, and not to go back to it,
No, it's fine.
you guys were both, but it sounded like at the end, like you two were like you could not reconcile your differences, you and your co-host. So like,
Well, I mean, I tried, right?
sure, but I'm saying like the thing, like it's not like you weren't buying the same show again because like you guys were broken.
Yeah, true. I think, you know, Michael, I hear you on that, and I understand.
I'm not defending anyone. I'm just saying like I can
Yes.
understand.
I think that we paid our dues by, you know, working for over a year and then, you know, pocketing $13 million. They were offering us $500,000 for the next year, which is like absolutely insane. We were making 2.5% off of merchandise. I can tell you now I'm making over 70% on merchandise. Like it was,
You need merchandise that says 70%.
yeah. Right? No, I almost called Sloop Media 2.5% media.
But I always tell people with like Dear Media I always tell people like, are you at the stage where you need to network or not? And some people don't.
You're not anymore.
You're not.
We're
Like,
not anymore.
Sure. Exactly.
The smart thing was to go and do a show and just call it something else. And people can disagree with me all they want. I think that was the move. But I know moving forward with Sloop Media, I am going to pay talent fairly. I am.
You should do a campaign or something on that, or a campaign with online bullying, because you truly have gone through the ringer, and like
Yeah.
maybe there's other creators that you can like help through this.
Yep.
Because it is something that's not talked about, and people almost think because you have the following that you deserve what comes with it. And people don't realize that it can be really damaging. Like someone told me online, and I'm sure you've heard like horrible things like this. I hope your baby dies. Like,
Oh my
how is that
God.
okay to say on the internet?
Send me their handle and
It's
their address.
insane.
I'm going.
No,
I'm
wait.
driving over.
Tell me, because I'm about to like post it on my story
You,
and be like,
you shouldn't
No.
be able to get away with that.
No.
It's just not okay. So
You just have to think about like the person that's taking the time to write that stuff.
no, it's a
that's what I always think about. I'm like, I have never felt the need to write something horrendous to someone. Like there's obviously something wrong with
There
this
is a
person.
huge like, so what I think, this is maybe over generous, but I think 80% of people are normal and like that. They don't need to talk. The problem is this other like 15, 20, 10% are just the most vocal.
Right.
They're the loudest.
Right.
But they are a minority. And I always point that out to people. Like the angriest,
Yes.
trolliest people, they are the minority still. They're just much louder than the normal people because normal people are fucking busy with their own shit and they're normal people. They don't have time to get in
Exactly.
fights with strangers on
I
the
have
internet.
never in my entire life gone to someone's page and wrote anything negative.
Me neither.
I would not even
Me neither.
cross my ether. My energy
No.
capacity doesn't even if someone pissed me off and said something, I can't even believe it. You know who you should talk to?
Who?
Stassi Schroeder.
Ooh, I was a big fan of her from Vanderpump Rules.
She went through.
She doesn't have a podcast anymore, right?
She does. She got her podcast back on Patron.
Patreon. Patron.
Someone is ready for a margarita.
Oh my god. But she got the same amount of hate through what she
Yeah.
went through, and she did the same thing you did. She backed off. But you guys, I feel like, would have so much to talk about.
Right. And then I'm kind of scared of like the backlash of people being like, why would you have her on? But after talking to you, Lauren, like I'm done like thinking that way. Everyone has in their past, you know, everyone has had controversy.
Just because you have someone on doesn't mean you agree with them.
Right.
I have 100, I say this a lot, I have 100 friends and none of them have the same opinions as me.
Right.
We all have different political, religious, whatever it is. I don't want to be friends with someone that thinks the same way as me. That's boring.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to have a show and have on someone that I agree with everything they're saying.
Totally.
So you can have someone on that has a past and have a conversation in a way where you're not judging them and just hear what they have to say.
Yep. Yes. Yes. Amen.
Like,
Thank
I'm not going to
you.
get canceled for having a guest on. I don't control what comes out of the guest's mouth.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, but so, listen, we've done this like 350 of these things. You're gonna have some people that are controversial. Like, I couldn't sit here and just keep having the same yes, I agree. Yes, like you have to have like it's
course.
boring as shit, right?
Right.
I wanna
And
have-
we're all three of us are going to end up saying something that is not going to go over well in some capacity. It's like we're human.
No, you can't please everyone.
No.
You know what? It's the
I
people
think-
that are constantly apologizing for saying things. Like, dude, we're human. I'm not gonna apologize. I fuck up sometimes.
Yep.
My apology is I fuck up sometimes. Sorry that you have to go through it. You can turn me off. I don't know.
I
But
love
I'm not gonna
that.
stop. But whatever.
Right.
Thank you for inspiring me to buy or what's it called? Which color should I get?
No, we're
Sophia,
sounding. You're sounding
Promise
Michael
me
tonight.
one thing in this great relationship you're in now. Don't shove a needle up this guy's. Just don't do it.
Why?
Michael, why?
Unless he's really
A number 2
Listen,
pencil, perhaps?
I think it's things are going well. It sounds like let's keep it smooth.
Okay, you know what? Fine, I won't.
Okay, that's the only
I
promise I
won't
want you
do
to make.
that.
Sounding and roping. It's on my itinerary.
You guys aren't allowed to talk about anything together because I don't need her. I don't need her getting any ideas.
No, I'm going to listen to her podcast and get all the tips.
All of them.
Yes.
Thank you guys for having me on.
Pimp yourself out. Tell us every little detail of what you're working on.
So my new show is called Sofia with an F. You can find me on all social media, Sofia with an F, Franklyn with a Y. I post a bunch of bullshit and ridiculous things. And that's basically it.
Perfect. And if there's a candidate for a threesome, you're not taking applications right now.
I'm always taking applications.
Okay.
So
Okay.
definitely DM me.
And just drop in.
Boy or girl.
Oh,
Slide
boy
in.
or girl?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Is the boyfriend going to love that?
I have no idea. I'm probably gonna be single after
It's
he
hard to
hears
like
it.
sound two people at once too. Like, I'm not ambidextrous.
Jesus Christ.
It's amazing.